Instacom is a service provider in South Africa, built on enterprise-grade infrastructure, designed to meet carrier-grade standards. Powered by AWS, our architecture delivers telco-level reliability and security without the limitations of traditional networks. Today, our CTO joins us to explain what this really means for our customers and why resilient, secure infrastructure matters more than ever for modern businesses. Wayne Oliver, CTO of Instacom, welcome back.
Thank you, Roland.
Again, to teach us more about how infrastructure works and how important that is in your business. Something that not a lot of us actually know too much about. I think we've learned over the years, but purely as an overview. We've now been at Instacom for about 14 years. And before that, I knew nothing about any infrastructure. And even today, just as an overview, I'm not even going into too much detail. I still learn daily. You must be spending a lot of time trying to stay up to date.
Yeah.
Is there specific areas that you go to find the newest and the latest?
I think it's just a constant barrage of information that you need to just swallow in order to understand what's best practices, how to ensure that you keep getting that uptime that you need, follow the new best practices, and if there's a new way of doing something, adapt and try and implement that. If you can, if you can get you an extra 9, that's what you're after at the end of the day. We'll talk about what 9s are in a minute.
Yeah. Also a new term that I've learned in the life of Instacom, right? Like days of our lives. So our topic today is the power of enterprise-grade architecture and how it benefits South African businesses. And I think within that, it also talks about what sets Instacom apart from competitors. And some of the key areas, I suppose, also for Instacom is resilience, reliability, and an infrastructure that creates redundancy. And that obviously is crucial, especially if you supply not just workforce management like we do, but also mission critical, because that's saving lives.
That's right, yes.
So let's start with the basics. When we say infrastructure is designed to meet carrier grade standards, what does that actually mean in practical terms?
Right, so I think we probably need to define what is carrier grade. Carrier grade is a term that's usually reserved for telcos, but all it really means is that you have very reliable systems that don't fall over. There's redundancy, so that you can do updates without downtime. It's a method of keeping the lights on all the time, and it's the methods behind that determine or make something carrier grade. Something's carrier grade if it was used by the telecoms networks. Think an MTN or a Vodacom or one of these kind of guys. They're not supposed to ever have downtime. I mean, everybody has a little bit of downtime, but you design for never having downtime, and the systems need to have all the fallback and redundancy in place so that you can meet your 5 nines. We're speaking about 9s again, so perhaps it's time to define what we mean by 9s. So when we say 4 nines or 5 nines, or even 3 nines, we're talking about the percentage of uptime, right? So if we say 3 nines, it means 99.9% uptime. I can't think of the numbers off the top of my head, but that will define how many minutes of downtime you are enabled or can have in a year to be able to classify yourself as 3 nines. We can push that on into 4 nines, which is a little more. Now we need to go a step further, and you have even less downtime to be able to say you tick the box for 4 nines, and then 5 nines or 6 nines. It just that window gets ever and ever smaller as you approach 100%.
I remember when we spoke about this many moons ago, and obviously nowadays it's kind of standard. But if you talk about 5 nines, it's kind of the differentiation in mission critical type of infrastructure versus just a normal infrastructure. And even in our game, where we sit right in the middle of it, I think we're extremely close, but we're not there yet. In some instances, I suppose we are, but that means maybe just in layman terms, in a year, you're not supposed to be more than 6 minutes down.
Yeah.
A little bit less than 6 minutes, but more or less.
Yeah, it depends on that, and it's works out to like seconds a month and that kind of stuff. So it's really you're got to have no downtime. I think if you look at all our stats, we will see very good uptime, and it's we have a lot of different systems. So that also sometimes blurs the line. Sometimes we have networks that can potentially fail that maybe skews the perception, but our systems are very reliable and are very close to those, and that's what we say we design for that. So we design so that we don't have any kind of downtime, any kind of hiccup when we do updates. We do regular updates, and they all happen seamlessly. The customers aren't even aware. The only way they can tell an update's happened is by seeing the version number will change on the software.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, we've got 99.99% over the past 8, almost going 9 years now, which is great. As you mentioned, I think some of the individual solutions is then 5 nines type of thing. So we are working towards that, but it is very, very small margins. We talk about 99.99, and you talk about 5 nines. It means that 99.999%, where the norm, how we talk in life is you're 80% there or 90% there or you're 97% there. We don't talk about 99.99%. I mean, that if you really define that in time, it is extremely small margin. So we're actually doing an amazing job. So firstly, well done with your team to be able to do that. And it's definitely a big portion of why Instacom moved forward. Seeing some of the customers, they would mention to you, we're looking to get new suppliers because our current guys are more off than on type of remarks. And that's a big portion of our 4 pillars that we work with to have stability on our platform. Hardware, software, the infrastructure, connectivity, and the support. And any one of those 4 not present means failure.
That's right.
But the reality is that everything sits within in the infrastructure and the reliability behind it. One of the areas that we mentioned is AWS, and that's Amazon, right?
That's right, yes.
But we weren't on them forever. We've only been on them now for a couple of years.
We transitioned to AWS once they put servers in South Africa. That the service has been around for some time. It's the gold standard. But in order to manage people's information correctly, adhere to POPI, we didn't want to put data on servers outside of South Africa. So we waited until that opportunity arose, and then we moved to. They give that having that infrastructure in place gives us that extra bit of peace of mind, and that our infrastructure, at least in the data center, working. We did have a previous provider. And we had a problem with a previous provider, which had enterprise grade. Everything was in place, and unfortunately, they had this was many years ago, had an incident where the redundant power supply failed, and we had downtime because of that. Completely out of our hands, but we had downtime because of that. So that extra peace of mind we get from AWS translates down to our customers too.
Yeah, it's quite a sight. I had the privilege to visit some of the MNOs, infrastructure data centers, and so on. Never in my wildest dreams have I dreamt of such a place. You can't even actually believe that something like that exists. And some of them is underground, and then there is air cons, massive air cons all over the place. It is cold down there, and also back up to that with huge generators that obviously runs on fuel, diesel and the likes. And I remember some of the visits weren't pleasant because it's the internal environments that didn't kick in, and then everybody was down in South Africa anyway. The first couple of hours, people scream at you as customers. They scream at you because you're down, and then they see in the social media and the news that even WhatsApp is down, and even the internet, you can't send an email, and then customers obviously accepted that it's not an Instacom problem, it's a South Africa problem in the sense of infrastructure and reliability. And fortunate or unfortunately, we are bound by the successes as well. And I think one of the areas where Instacom has done extremely well is build the right relationships to make sure that our infrastructures are looked after, our suppliers do what they're supposed to, work with our customers, see what they need, and so forth. And that actually gives us an opportunity to then move forward. One of the infrastructure challenges that we've looked at expanding at the speed that we are, including Texas, where we were there last year. When you don't have localized infrastructure, there's some challenges.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I think right off the bat, not having your servers local and using a communication platform, you're going to introduce latency. So it might not seem like a lot, but when you push you want to talk and you do your push and you talk, and there's that perceptible delay, it just degrades the entire experience of using the system. And again, that's a mission critical system, a system that people use, first responders. We can't afford to have that with delays and just an unpleasant thing to use. It needs a work tool that needs to work extremely well, fast, first time.
Yeah. Hence the starting point for Instacom many moons ago was Instacom instant communication, not Instacom delayed 1 second communication. The reality of it is, if you look at first responders, security and police and the likes, when bullets fly past your head, there's no time for 1 and 2 and 3 seconds before it connects. So the infrastructure and how we optimize everything that works on it is crucial in supporting lives, but also growing businesses. And we've seen it so many times in different industries in different countries. And that's also one of the areas where people want to know, what do we have? If I look at our brag sheet, as I call it, one of them are that we have many servers. How many do we have?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, because we have so many of them are just redundant servers, right? So we could count the services and we could say, well, this is how many we have, but we keep adding regularly. So if I told you X today, tomorrow it's going to be X plus 5. So
okay.
I'd rather
but
not
we
say.
Are over 100.
Yes, across the board. I mean, we think we have so many different services. Each service has redundancy. So 2 or 3 servers per service, and then there's testing versions of that and development versions of that.
Makes sense.
So yes, there's a lot of servers, and in most cases nowadays virtual machines, but a lot of moving parts, individual components that need to be maintained.
Also, a big portion that people need to consider when they take a technology partner on board. A lot of our competitors, we have seen that they have 2 and 3 and 5 and 8 servers. With regards to redundancy versus where we sit over 100 and growing, as you're saying, it is an important portion that you need to consider when choosing a technology partner that's going to give you reliability and supposed to save some lives in your business or make you more efficient and save money. Instead of it being down and you revert back to the old paper methods or manual methods that we've had forever and a day. The infrastructure resilience obviously have huge importance for all industries that we serve. Tell us a little bit more about that resilience and how does that impact our customers?
Yeah, so I think that comes down to the fact that you spoke about going back to the paper. You never want to have to go back to the paper. You want, no matter what happens on our side with failures of hardware or software along the line, we need a system that can self-heal, move on, and you continue to use it without noticing it at the customer side. And that's what we design for, and that's what we strive towards.
Yeah. Instacom prides itself on delivering enterprise grade performance. Can you walk us through those measures we've taken to to create that high availability and resilience?
So I think that we've touched on a lot of it already. It's about ensuring that we have failover, redundancy, load balancing across multiple servers in this case, so that no matter what you're doing, you get a consistent experience. You don't have submitting something now and it takes a minute, and I do it later, it takes 30 seconds, and a minute 30. We have a pretty consistent experience. Same with the push to talk. We can't have those delays. We need a consistent experience, and that's what that is. So if we had to go into the weeds of it, we could look at the specifics of the uptime we need to get, the services we need to get, how we do load balancing. But I think at the end of the day, the idea is to have a customer first experience.
And within those areas, there's obviously a very, very, very important point, which I think every single digital partner should consider or should have part of, is the security behind the data.
Yeah, 100%.
And do we have dedicated individuals for that, or are we winging that off the fly?
No. We're definitely not winging that. So security is multifaceted, right? And I could probably talk for hours on security. We have a small team dedicated to security within Instacom. It's not even just security on the servers, because often the weakest link or the place where you can have a problem is with humans, because humans can be fooled in certain instances. We have a security team. We run constant phishing campaigns within our company, but at the same time on the servers, the infrastructure, which is what we're really talking about, is we have external penetration tests. So we have companies that will do what we call black box testing, which means that they don't know anything about our system, but they just have to try and break in. And we do those regularly. So that's part of the security, but that's just one part of it. Another part of it is during our development phase, we use something called continuous integration, and it's a very, very normal for most of the world. But during that continuous integration, we are doing security tests, doing code tests. So if I give you an example, one of our developers works on a new feature. It goes through, it gets reviewed by his peers. It pushes it through to our code base, and then our CR, which is the continuous integration, runs. And it will do a bunch of tests on that code. So this is before it even gets to a human to test and run through. We're doing static analysis of the code to make sure that there's no obvious mistakes in the code that was missed by a human. We're doing tests, integration tests, all at this phase before we even send it to a human. We'll then also test the security of it. It's one of the aspects on the checklist of testing, is test that this only does what it's supposed to do and there's no way to break out of it. So the security is a very big part of what we do, and making sure that the system that collects that data stays secure, because I think that would be even personally just a problem if we had an issue with security. I pride myself on the fact that we do everything we can to be as secure as possible.
No, the reason why I'm saying that, or I'll be winging it, is because isn't that how we do things? I speak to a lot of my friends. They also automate or digitize something, and all they did is they just downloaded this app and it's for free. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. The reality is that we weren't born with technology at the ages that we are in making decisions for our business, and simply we just trust, and then we fail. And when you start to lose a lot of money because that isn't in place, then you want to do something about it. And the reality is we have to be proactive in the security portion of things. We talk about data security within our design, but how about data security within your business? Emails and passwords. You talk about phishing emails. How do you even manage to have 150 people? And Instacom obviously is still growing, but we already have 150 people. I can't even imagine companies with 1,000 or 100,000 people. How do you manage data security in your operations?
Well, I think it's a constant thing. It's an arms race, right? Because the attack and the attack surfaces change regularly. It means that you have a team that needs to be on top of it, know about new threats, which means consuming a lot of content on what the threats are, what the targets are, and being able to get in and know that information as soon as possible and put mitigations in place so that we don't have an issue. At the risk of someone clicking on a link in an email is still very real for anybody, for any company. You could try and put other mitigations in, but I think at the end of the day, education is the most important part.
Yeah. I remember we had an ambulance service which we provided with communication, which is 100% secure. They used two-way radios that obviously can be listened into on the right channels. And what they found is that on the traditional UHF, VHF type of communication, they would have an accident, and the pickup truck guys would listen in, and then they would be at the accident before the ambulance is. and one of their requirements were they want to have a secure solution, and we delivered the solution to them. They used it for a couple of months, and then we have to come help them to just align. One of their guys sold his password to a pickup truck company so that they can still listen into within having the passwords, right? So security is a huge importance in your business, and controlling that is obviously challenging. But I think, as you mentioned, I think education is a big portion of it. Not just for Instacom, but for our customers. They're working with information. It's their information, and we work very closely with them. But for them to also make sure that their security internally and processes are put in place. Unfortunately, traditionally, how we've done business in the past, before we digitized, we didn't care about passwords because you didn't have a password opening up a piece of paper. But nowadays, there's a big portion of it that needs to be managed. Yep. So what's the difference between, if you talk about infrastructure, on-prem infrastructure and cloud native approach as Instacom?
So I think on-prem just means that you've got your computers are either or usually at your office, right? Which means you need to do a lot of things in order to make sure those servers are going to be secure if they're at your office. And cloud native means you design for services running on the cloud, like in our case, AWS. It means all our servers are designed to run on the AWS infrastructure, take advantage of the tools that AWS provide, or any other provider, but we've chosen AWS as the gold standard. I think that would be the summary of it. I think
who would typically do something like that?
Well, on-prem.
Yes,
I think a lot of people would go for an on-prem solution. It's a lot cheaper. You maybe don't need to put all the dual powers and all the rest of it. Startups might go for on-prem, where they're worried that AWS control costs could spiral. A lot of people would go. I think a lot of people who maybe don't trust the cloud would go for on-prem. But I think most of the time it's a cost-saving exercise, which means that if you're using an on-prem solution, not always, but if you're using an on-prem solution, you're probably more susceptible to load sheddings and network outages, fibers, whatever, unless you've created an enterprise-grade data center yourself, which is a lot of work, and
probably costly,
very costly. And it's it's a specialist thing, a data center. Like you said, you've been to data centers. I've been through a few big data centers myself, obviously with the line of work, and it's not just something anyone does. If you're working in data centers, you want to make sure that everything's done right with regards to power, with regards to aircon, wiring. Everything needs to be perfect. Otherwise, there's no point you having the best software in the world if you have it on unreliable infrastructure.
And I've heard a lot of mission critical guys like localized police in the different countries that we do business in would require on-prem and to be able to control the quality of that security themselves. The other area is mining. Mining is definitely a part of it because they don't have proper connectivity normally.
Yeah, so I think in a lot of those kind of situations, that's now a little different, where you have a mine will have the resources to build a data center, and they already have a data center most likely. Likewise with government organizations, they will have data centers and good data centers. So in that situation, we have an option. We're building options for self-hosting of the PTX solution. So yeah, we have options for it. They are sometimes limited compared to the full SaaS option, but they are available.
Now, how would you get the information off-site if you need to?
So I think that everything's through a web interface. I think you would have to open it up with a VPN or something like that for your users to be able to access that.
So that would maybe have like a breakout through the internet into wherever you need to push it.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. Well, and so we learn. Obviously, these type of infrastructures and the speciality in it is not everybody's cup of tea. It's something that you don't learn from YouTube. It is something that you have to specialize in. You've got to spend a lot of time, effort, and money in it. Looking ahead, how will Instacom continue to evolve its infrastructure to obviously meet the growing demand, speed, reliability, and obviously the security in South Africa?
Yeah, I think I touched on it a little earlier in that we just need to stay relevant with the current trends, right? And knowing what's going to be best, keeping up with the latest. One of the things that we find, or I've found in my career, is people have the latest or have the best software, but they're running it on outdated operating systems, for example. So that maintenance, I think that's a large part of it. So if you have your entire system running on, say, something that's end of life, you've put that whole system at risk. So that constant maintenance, making sure that you're on the latest version, latest patch level, that comes back to security. If you could be one patch level off, and your entire system is wide open. So I think that engineering and focus is mostly about maintenance, updates, following best practices, following the latest versions of operating systems and software that we use, and making sure that there's never anything that's out of date, because that is a full-time job on its own, right? Just keeping an eye on all of these vulnerabilities. Obviously, I'm very close to it. I do this regularly, but I think even people I've spoken to have said that they noticed a lot more, or they hear a lot more about hacks happening. A hack happened there, data was breached over there, information was stolen. So it's not something that's unheard of. In fact, it's happening more and more regularly.
Yeah, and I think a lot more to come. Yeah. And a lot more people is skilled in doing the criminal portion beyond it, unfortunately, and we've got to be proactive. So one of the things that I think is important to make sure that the security within your platform is where it's supposed to, is to also understand that cheap is not good and good is not cheap. That is just the short and long of it when it comes to quality and service delivery. And so for Instacom, it's important to position ourselves as a premium brand in IoT software solutions around the globe. Obviously, our main focus is Africa at this stage, although we're branching out a little bit more to Papua New Guinea, kind of Australia, Canada, and obviously the US we've touched on. There's quite a few places that we're going to, and within this discussion with infrastructure and security, people don't necessarily want the data to leave the country. And even in South Africa, we have POPI compliance. So protection of personal information that prevents you in some cases to allow data to leave the borders. So there's a lot of rules and regulations that we need to understand to be able to function legally, and to make sure that we deliver to our customers first. And to make sure that we protect the information of our customers. It is detrimental to have information obviously breached.
Yes.
We've seen massive organizations in the past couple of years that had it already experienced. I think the bigger you get, the more in the eye you will be. for this, and so being prepared is a big portion of it. We obviously spend a lot of money on that and growing your team to be able to make sure that we tick all the boxes.
Something that you mentioned there that I thought I would just add a little bit. Have you heard the term infrastructure as code before?
No.
All right, so I think that's a good opportunity to talk about something. So one of the reasons we spoke about cloud native earlier and what that means. What it means to be cloud native means we can write all of our infrastructure into code. So if we need to go to Australia and spin up the full system in Australia, it's all defined in code. We run a script, for lack of a better word, and it brings up the entire PTX system in a new environment. That's part of it's part of our DR and all the rest of it too. But the idea is that we can copy and paste, not quite, but copy and paste the entire infrastructure in another country in minutes.
Wow. So technology just grows so fast, and it allows you to also grow, which is great. I'm so glad you're part of our team. Wayne, Oliver, thank you very much for your time, your effort. We hope to speak to you soon about a lot more specialized services that will help all of us in the near future. So keep an eye out when you see Wayne is available and talk about things that makes a difference in your business. Thank you very much. Have a safe trip back.
Thank you.